Wicomico County Council will now reconvene our legislative session 2016-22 for November 1st, 2016. Those that would like to join us for the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I had noted earlier that we were reconvening because at 2 o'clock today, the council approved the sale of bonds, about $20.3 million worth in bonds. We got an excellent rate of 2.089, and that will help us as far as the funding is concerned in our capital improvement program for West Salisbury, for Parkside High School, a very large project. We have to work with EMS radio services. And in addition to that, the Board of Elections building that you now see on Snow Hill Road. So it was successful. It was a very successful bid, and we feel the citizens of Wicomico County have got an excellent rate. So to let you know. That being said, we would now like to move on with the regular agenda, and for that I would turn to Ms. Laura Hurley. Good evening.
Good evening, Council President, County Council members, ladies and gentlemen. The first item for business this evening is a public hearing on Resolution Number 136, 2016, to amend the official road name list for Wicomico County, to rename a portion of George Drive to Shorewood Ford Drive. A public notice was advertised in the Daily Times newspaper stating the time and place of the public hearing and requesting that all interested persons attend the public hearing to express their views and opinions concerning the matter.
Okay, at this time we open the floor for a public hearing on Resolution 136, 2016. If you have any comments you'd like to make, go to the podium, please. State your name and your concerns. Okay, seeing none, that concludes the public hearing. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 136, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Okay, the next item for council's consideration is Resolution Number 137, 2016, approving a transfer between major categories of the Wicomico County Board of Education operating budget for fiscal year 2017, transferring a total of $75,000. And Bruce Ford with the Wicomico County Board of Education is here.
Bruce, there he is. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to entertain a motion, if I could, for Resolution 137, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion second.
First off, I'd like to congratulate the council on the great interest rate on that bond sale.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Obviously, that's going to support some major projects for the Board of Education, so we really appreciate your support on that initiative. We're before you tonight to seek permission to approve a proposal that we submitted to Mr. Culver's office. He approved and forwarded it to you to seek approval for the transfer of $75,000 for a
Can you speak
salary.
into the mic?
Excuse me, for a transfer to $75,000 for a study on salary. Last study was done in 1999. As the council may know, the United States Department of Labor issued a final rule on May the 18th of 2016, revising the overtime exemption requirements under the Fair Labor Standards Act. The rule changes the minimum salary level requirements from $23,660 to $46,476, with adjustments to be made every 3 years. The board staff made a presentation of the impact of this rule change, which becomes effective December 1st, to our Board of Education in September. The impact of the rule change currently involves 5 job classifications with a projection to impact 19 different job classifications if the board does not react. That means that positions which heretofore were non-exempt, or excuse me, were exempt, will become non-exempt and be available for overtime. Prior to that, prior to this rule change, they were exempt from any overtime requirements. The board at that meeting in September authorized staff to seek a budget transfer to fund a salary study, and this transfer is before you tonight for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Any questions?
Does it really cost $75,000 for a study?
Well, the projections that we've received is as much as $50,000. I didn't want to have to come back to the council for additional money, so the board was recommending that we go as 75 just to make sure that we had sufficient funds. The last thing I want to do would be back up here asking for additional money.
And what will be the end result? I mean, what are you looking to have the study show you to do?
To advise whether these classifications that we currently have are within market, and based upon that study, make recommendations how we can be in better compliance with the new Department of Labor regulations.
So if you do not spend the 75,000, the money left over, does it get reverted back to another fund, or?
It would stay there, and if it's not spent, it will go to our fund balance and become the starting point for the subsequent year's budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 137, 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Thank you.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
The next item for council's consideration is Resolution Number 138, 2016, approving and publishing the dates of the official holidays for county employees for the year of 2017.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 138, 2016.
So moved.
Second? Discussion.
Does this coincide with the city as well? Which I know we've done that in the past.
Did you get an answer?
Yeah.
Answer was yes.
Somebody was shaking their head.
Okay. Any other question? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 138, 2016, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next, we have Resolution Number 139, 2016, approving a request to waive the landfill tipping fees for the city of Salisbury in the amount of $293.40 following a storm cleanup event.
Entertain a motion to accept Resolution 139, 2016.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes. It's going to be a quick night.
That's all I have.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Mr. Baker.
Yes, sir. Have for your consideration legislative bill 2016-12, which is an act to repeal Chapter 130 of the Wicomico County Code dealing with development impact fees. This was introduced. You've had a public hearing and a discussion on it, and bring it back tonight for a final resolution.
I'll make a motion to bring legislative bill 2016-12 back on the table. Mr. Hall, is that correct?
So move.
Robert.
It is correct. Thank you.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Entertain a motion to accept legislative bill 2016-12.
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Okay, discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of legislative bill 2016-12, we'll do a roll call, starting with Councilman Hall. All those in favor?
We're voting to, now, let me understand what we're voting on.
Certainly.
Since we.
Not a problem.
Only talking about Chapter 130-18 came off the table, which was an amendment, correct?
We're talking about repealing the entire chapter,
The entire chapter.
not just a section.
So a positive vote an aye vote would repeal.
If you're in
be a
favor,
vote
it would
favor.
repeal impact fees entirely, the chapter as a whole.
I vote aye.
Councilman Kilmer.
Aye.
Councilman Matt Holloway, Vice
Aye.
President. Councilman Dodd?
That'd be another aye.
Councilman Davis?
No.
Councilman Joe Holloway?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Legislative Bill 2016-12 is approved. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comments. If anyone has public comments, you can go to the podium, please, state your name, and let us know of your concern.
My name is Krista Hughes. I live at 8599 Northwest Road. My comments are regarding the large-scale poultry houses, namely the one on Northwest Road, but particularly, well, to conclude all of Wicomico County. Since the county has adopted their new setbacks, now is the time to address the real health concerns of this community. While so many permits already in the pipeline, it is time to have a temporary moratorium on new CAFO building permits until a thorough health impact assessment is completed and can be used to inform a community dialogue with the county council to adopt a public health ordinance into county code.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
A short handout, it comes from the old office days of
Paper?
paper. My name's Charles Denton, and I come from Whitehaven. Mark, Bob, those are some of my neighbors and representatives. I'm also going to comment just briefly on the continuing issue of CAFOs in Wicomico County. And what I've passed out here, I'll let you look at the list as I speak if you wish. I appreciate the opportunity to express my opinion tonight. Now, I've provided in this handout a list of poultry farm projects that were, quote, in the pipeline before the new zoning ordinance was approved and therefore must only comply with a 100-foot setback. This list was provided to me by John Redden in the County Public Works. For more completeness, you should also include the 10 houses on the Naylor Mill project that we've talked about so much, and also 8 houses in the Rockawalken Ridge project. Those just do not show up on this list, but they're in the process of either early construction or approval. What I hope that you will do is see that from this list, we're talking about 20 or so projects and 70-plus new houses. And on the list, you can see on the far right hand with the number of houses per project, you'll see some appear to be small one-house additions and some are large 8-house projects. My point is very simple. I provide this information, I provide this list as information. I don't know how many of you fellows had seen it before, but it was very interesting to me. The industrial poultry farm expansion is real and will affect our community for years to come. I believe it is important that we make sure the health concerns of water quality issues are understood and addressed for us and our families. So I will join with others tonight in asking this county council to initiate, under its direction, a real health impact assessment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Good evening, President Shawnee.
President Cannon, members of the County Council, and all those assembled, good evening. My name is Mary Ashanti, and I'm president of Wicomico County NAACP. And as always, I thank God for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. I have 2 issues. One is in reference to the health impact assessment. Health concerns have not been addressed yet by the county. The health impact assessment submitted to the council was flawed and deficient in facts, research, data, and community involvement. We, meaning the coalition, want a thorough, independent, third-party health impact assessment conducted not only to address the community concerns about Neelamere Road, but an assessment that will also address the CAFO expansion that's taking place countywide. We ask that you revoke building permit for Neelamere Road CAFOs, especially since they were based on the faulty health assessment, health impact assessment. And our thinking is, since you had the power to issue the permit, we feel that you also had the power to revoke them. Second thing I wish to talk about is to mention about, I see that you have the ballot question A, Wicomico County Board of Election and Appointment of Members. Wicomico County NAACP urge voters to select option 1 on the ballot question A to keep the current method. And lastly, we invite you to a town hall meeting entitled CAFO's Economic and Public Health on November the 9th, 6 p.m. at First Baptist Church, 528 Booth Street in Salisbury, Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, President Shawnee. Any other public comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. As you know, I am Maria Payan. I work for a national nonprofit that has been helping this community with this issue on Naylor Mill Road and some of the other facilities that are coming in particularly in concern with the public health issues and the protection of the Paleo Channel. I was here months ago, and we actually requested numerous times with the citizens to have John Hopkins Center for a Livable Future come to a work session to discuss the public health issues. No response was ever given, and they were never invited here. We did meet with the Wicomico County Health Department, which included Hopkins Center for a Livable Future was on conference call, NAACP was there, Moms Across America, the Eastern Shore, I mentioned NAACP, the Citizens Group, ST Coastal Trust, myself in January, as well as in April. And we asked if they would do a health impact assessment because of our concern about the Paleo Channel being the public water supply for the city of Salisbury and the overlay district with the protections that are afforded by the county to look into that. We were told that they did not have the funding to do it. I had received a call from a community in Cecil County, Maryland, and in this article that they sent me that was in the paper was a health impact assessment by Wicomico County referenced, and this was in a letter from their health department, the Cecil County Health Department. Well, I was shocked, and I told them, no, that's impossible. We met twice with Lori in January and April, and we were told they didn't have the funding. Part of the thing with a health impact assessment is there are standards and procedures, and one of them is stakeholder involvement, community participation, and to distribute the information once you get it. Now, when I did get that information, I'll just read you my emails back and forth with Lori. This was on July 14th of 2016. Lori, I hope you're well. I know it's been a while since we spoke. I was contacted by some citizens in Cecil County about a poultry project referenced in a letter from Cecil County Health Department was an HIA done on a proposed 13-house AFO project in April of 2016 in Wicomico County. I'm not aware of a health impact assessment done this April in Wicomico County. Did Wicomico County Health Department do one, and somehow I'm not aware of it? Thanks for any input as I'm trying to respond to the community. Lori emails me back. We did do one and presented to county officials. It's available on our website. Please contact me if you have questions. I responded back, thanks, Lori. Was this shared with the concerned citizens, NAACP or Hopkins CLF? The response is not directly. Yet, in the health impact assessment, it's quoted as Hopkins being involved in the procedure, as well as the citizens group. This is highly flawed. We are asking, since county relied on this, to again revoke the permit on Naylor Mill Road due to the health concerns that were never addressed, have an independent study done, and then let's go from there. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing none. Council comments. Councilman Dodd?
I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight, a nice turnout. Coming up, today's November 1st, I guess 10 days, November 11th, they're going to have at the Civic Center a Veterans Day ceremony. That event gets bigger and bigger, and I appreciate everyone that puts it on, and I'd like to see more people attend, and I really would like to thank all the veterans. Anybody that's a veteran, past or present, thank you.
Any other council comments? Under presidential comments, I'd like to recognize Delegate Carl Anderson. Glad to have you here. Round of applause. Thank you. Saturday, I attended the Allen Community Day. The Allen Volunteer Fire Company put this on. It was a really great event. It was great for the community. I had a lot of fun. The Sheriff's Department had their canine unit out there with Lieutenant Robinson and Private First Class Heath. And they put on a great demonstration for all the kids to see what the dogs do and how well the dogs are trained. That was just part of it, but it was a great day, and I appreciate the hard work that they went to put that event out for the public. The kids were painting pumpkins and everything else, so it was a great event. That being said, I don't have much more to add. I'd like to entertain a motion, if I could, to adjourn so that we can go into an open work session followed by a closed work session.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned. I think we'll move right ahead, fellas, if that's okay. We'll start with a local referendum.
Yes.
I guess let's wait for it to clear a little bit.
How you doing, sir? Bruce, good to see you.
Sure.
Good man. Good to see you.
Man, you got off these.
What's that? Mr. Ford. Your last name? My last day when I'm retired.
No. Oh, you got more than two in you. You got more than two in you, Bruce. Take care.
I'm gonna do 2 more years too.
Good luck. We only have more
Don't spend all that
financial
money.
Your way?
Don't spend all that.
So it was a good question. All right, good. Let me know. It's a good question.
Hey, Bruce. You're welcome.
We good. Thank you, Laura. You could continue.
Okay, so I was asked to go over the ballot questions for the November 8th election coming up.
Okay.
Starting with question A. It pertains to the manner in which members of the Wicomico County Board of Education are selected. There are 3 options. Option 1 is to retain the current appointed board system in which the governor appoints the members of the board. Option 2 is to change to elected board with 5 members elected by voters within the voters' council's district and 2 at-large members elected by all voters of Wicomico County. Option 3 is the hybrid option, and that is to change to a combination of members who are elected and who are appointed, with 5 members elected by the voters within the Voters' Council District, and 2 members appointed by the Wicomico County Council from a list of nominees proposed by a school board nominating commission.
Thank you very much. Second item on the ballot.
Okay, questions B through J are charter amendment questions, which council had public meetings on and adopted by resolution number 101, 2016. Voters will have the option to vote for the charter amendment or against the charter amendment. Question B pertains to Charter Sections 205 and 206. It is to amend the Wicomico County Charter to require a special election to fill a county council vacancy if an appointment to fill a vacancy in the council is made more than 30 days before the following deadline for the primary for President of the United States. The person appointed to fill the vacancy shall serve until the first Tuesday in December following the general election for the President of the United States. And for clarification, a special election is an election for the voters of Wicomico County, separate from the primary and general election.
But to clarify, this would take place at the same time as the primary and the general election, though, for the president. So it's special only in that it doesn't occur on the regular cycle of county elections, so.
Correct.
Okay.
Question C.
Steve, could you ask them to be quiet in the hall? I can hear it. Sometimes it's worse out there. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, question C pertains to Charter Section 315, and it is to amend the county charter to extend the time for the council to act to confirm or reject any appointment by the county executive of the director of administration, the head of a department in the executive branch, or a member of a board or commission from 30 days to 45 days from submission, and to require submission at a legislative session of council. Question D pertains to Charter Section 407. It is to amend the county charter to require a special election for county executive if a vacancy occurs within the first 12 months of a term, and providing for an interim appointee before the special election. If a vacancy occurs after the first 12 months of a term, then the county council is authorized to permanently fill the vacancy by majority vote within 45 days after the vacancy occurred. The current charter requires the council to fill a county executive vacancy by resolution within 30 days. Question E pertains to Charter Section 410. It is to amend the county charter to direct that the Director of Administration shall perform the duties of county executive in the event of a temporary absence or disability of the county executive. This amendment would remove the county executive's option to designate in writing some other person in the executive branch to perform the duties of county executive in the event of a temporary absence or disability of the county executive. Question F. Charter Section 414. It is to amend the county charter to limit the term of an appointment as an acting director of administration or any acting head of a department to a period of 90 days, and providing that the council may extend the appointment every 90 days. The current charter limits the temporary appointment by the county executive as an acting director of administration or an acting head of a department only if the person does not possess all the qualifications of office as required by the charter. Question G pertains to Section 504. It is to amend the Wicomico County Charter to provide that a reorganization includes any change of functions, responsibilities, or powers of any part of the executive branch, or a management-initiated rearrangement of reporting relationships, including terms of financial compensation of multiple positions within or between executive departments, offices, or agencies. Question H. It pertains to Charter Section 507. It is to amend the Wicomico County Charter to change the role of the county attorney in the representation of the county council and the council's right to employ counsel. The current charter requires that the county attorney be the legal advisor of the council, and the charter amendment modifies this requirement. Question I pertains to Charter Section 601. It is to amend the Wicomico County Charter to authorize the county council to establish by law a personnel system and to provide that the county executive may propose changes or revisions for adoption by the council. Question J pertains to Charter Section 705. It is to amend the Wicomico County Charter to provide that in the event the county council and county executive do not agree upon the expenditure of a surplus resulting from the council's decreasing or deleting budget items, the surplus will be placed in the undesignated fund balance. Again, voters will have the options to vote for or against each charter amendment. Ballot questions have been placed on the county's website for people to read and review, and the council office is happy to answer any questions that the public has. Early voting is taking place now and continues through November the 3rd at the Wicomico County Youth and Civic Center. The general election is Tuesday, November the 8th, from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at polling places throughout Wicomico County.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hurley. As was stated earlier, the council went to great lengths to propose these charter amendments. They were a great period of time. We took a lot of care and consideration into this. We certainly would want you to review them very carefully and make your decision as to how you'd like to vote on these amendments. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to call the county council office, or you can call any one of the individual council members here at any time, right? If you have any questions at all, we'd certainly be glad to answer your questions. So again, thank you very much. Moving on, the next item we have is a work session on the, we okay? I'm sorry, no, I am sorry.
I was just going to say,
I think you had a comment.
I was going to
Go
remark, I have been
Yeah.
getting phone calls on it, so so they've already taken your advice.
Okay. Any other, I'm sorry, gentlemen, any other comments as far as the work session is concerned? Thank you, Councilman Kilmer. Thank you. Next item we have on the agenda is Barron Creek. I know that Mr. Weston Young is here, and Mr. Lee Outen, Mr. Wayne Strasburg. Gentlemen?
Evening. Yeah. We'd like to spend some time with you talking about what our options are as we move forward. I think you already know that the dam and the surrounding land are privately owned, and the county doesn't have any ownership rights or easements that would be required in order to carry out any associated restoration. So we have two landowners. We have one at either end of the road. One has advised us, I suppose it would be the south end of the road. That owner has advised us that he doesn't want the road reopened, that he would like the road to be terminated at his property. The other owner has been unresponsive to requests from the executive to meet to discuss any possible restoration. That particular owner owns the dam and the land under it and adjacent to it. I think Mr. Baker can describe to you the great difficulty we've experienced with this landowner for well over 2 decades. Finally, immediately after the July washout, which I think is either the third or perhaps the fourth Lee in the road's history, we met on site with representatives of the appropriate state agencies to discuss our options. None of the agencies were in favor of restoring the dam. Weston, when I finish up here, can walk you through, Weston and Lee can walk you through the options that are available to us along with the estimated costs of each. In my closing comments, I would just ask that you bear in mind that the State Assembly has continuously rejected Governor Hogan's efforts to restore HUR funding, and the governor has just announced $82 million in mid-year spending cuts, which include reduction in the county disparity grants. Therefore, the lion's share of financial supports for roads will continue to come from the county's general fund. And with that, I will turn it over to Weston and to Lee to talk to you about the various alternatives that we have.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
So as Wayne mentioned, there's a few alternatives we've been considering. All involve getting the necessary property to do work out there. The two main options in terms of restoring the road includes restoring the road with culvert pipes or restoring the road as a dam. There's been requests for both to be considered. The two main state agencies that regulate this sort of area is DNR with their fish passage. They have money available across the state for the removal of dams. They're looking to increase habitat for the fish that migrate upstream to lay their eggs, shad, herring, things like that. The other is MDE Dam Safety. The Maryland Department of the Environment Dam Safety has come across, they're okay if we rebuild the dam. It's just, it has to be built to modern dam regulations. The current setup is that's a historical mill dam. It's been there for hundreds of years. That was not built to dam safety standards and did not. It was considered in poor condition and hasn't fully been on the state's radar because it's considered a low hazard dam. That means that the threat of property damage or life lost is minimal or non-existent. The fact that it's been private and low hazard means that it hasn't been on our radar either. We have 9 dams, 2 of which are high hazard. The one that we are currently working on this summer, Morris Mill, has I think 56 residential properties and 19 roads, if I recall from memory, that are affected, and that is considered a high hazard dam. So the rough estimate we have for a construction of a dam there is in $2 to $3 million, possibly more. We haven't had it designed yet. That will be several $100,000 to do that, and making sure that it's made out of probably a clay core and the like. The culvert option was one that we needed to hear from fish passage folks first to see if it is okay to just put some sort of culvert there. Like many of the roads we have in the county that cross streams or creeks, we have pipes that go under the roads. So when we need to do repairs to those, we reach out to the state agencies. If it's an emergency repair, we talk to them afterwards. So it's something very common. We can do it in-house is the essence of it. So the two main options on the table, which both require property, as Wayne described, include putting a dam at a several $1 million cost estimate, and then doing the culverts. We're trying to, I guess, harden the number a bit, but we're looking $200,000, $300,000, maybe $400,000. The road stretch that is considered a dam is almost 700 feet long, and that's generally been eroded in various forms. We would need to put guardrail back, and given how tight that road is, we had to use a special guardrail, so that's probably an additional $50,000 at least. So yeah, those are.
The cable costs more than the barrier?
Yes.
Is that right?
When we had issues with it before and we looked into the cost, the cable's actually more expensive.
Can you talk into the mic?
I'm sorry. So yes, the type of guardrail that's there now, if we were to replace it, is actually more expensive than standard guardrail that you see along the roads, the cable and posts.
Wow.
Yes. Sorry.
So in summary, the two main options which involve getting the needed property to do either have I'll say costs that range from hundreds of thousands to multi-millions, depending on what course of action we want to take to reopen the road.
Weston, is would the culverts restore the pond?
No.
The culverts wouldn't restore the pond.
No.
Now, we do have ponds with culverts, so, as an example, where we were at last week, Merritt Mill has a pond and has culverts, so why could not, if we ever got far enough along to do this, why could not the culverts restore the pond? Why couldn't it be built?
Yeah, it's possible, but when you start having the pond and an embankment, it starts reaching the dam regulations. And then that would kick it into, given there is almost, I believe it's 10,800 and change in terms of thousands of acres that drain to that location. So almost 11,000 acres drain there. If you have it ponded even slightly, it needs to be able to withstand that amount of water coming. So if you have culverts put in that will, meet fish passage, we can satisfy that branch of the state and yeah, be able to pass that amount of water coming.
That would be the issue with the fish passage, because it would only be part-time fish passage if you set the pipes to hold pool elevation. If you weren't having any weather events and the pond's just sitting there, you're not gonna have anything going through the culvert, so you're not gonna have fish passage.
The next question, as far as land ownership, the person that owns the pond, do they own, get this right now, do they own the land on the pond side and the, I'll call it the swamp side? Do they own both sides of the road?
No, the downstream is owned by a historical trust.
Okay, has there been any contact with them to see if you could get any land off of them? If they would be willing to donate land to help restore the road?
To my knowledge, I'm not sure if any conversations have been had with them.
Another question, how's the agreement at Parker's Pond? Does anybody know? Mr. Baker might.
You talking about Lasaki's?
Yeah, that's the one. Like,
Yeah, that's a similar situation to this, or it
It's somewhat
was?
similar. They have one sluice gate that is considered private. That owner paid for improvements to that sluice gate. It actually generated electricity at one time.
Yeah.
The main weir, however, on Parker Pond is the county's, and we have easements for that.
So
However,
we have
there is,
easements and the road is ours?
we have easements and the road is ours, but again, at that particular location of the sluice gate, and Mr. Baker probably would be able to explain that better, I do believe that somehow or another, it's a similar situation as Barron Creek, that the actual structure under the road is private where the sluice gate is, at that one spot in that pond.
It's a very odd arrangement.
Yeah. Well, I think any of these situations.
These
they're all-
old agricultural
Yeah,
lands
they're
are
all
like that.
Yeah,
Councilman Kilmer?
So on the ownership, so what, obviously the county operates the road that, used to exist there. How, does the county operate down from the road, or that road is built on private property? I've been trying to clarify, what's the county owned, what's privately owned?
Here's the history, Mark, as I understand it. And this goes well back. I think it goes back into the 50s. There was the agricultural dam was there. The state of Maryland actually constructed the road. At some point in time, the state of Maryland gratuitously offered ownership of the road bed to the county, and we accepted it. It's a very odd situation. In discussing it with Mr. Wilbur, I posed the question that just simply doesn't make any sense, that a road would have been built on a right-of-way over which there was not a permanent easement and/or fee ownership. And apparently, that long ago, it was fairly commonplace. So the fee ownership or permanent easement, to our knowledge, does not exist.
So the county owns
The road bed itself.
the roadbed itself and,
Yeah.
what the road's constructed on, but the earthen dam that it's on is Mr. Suggs.
That's owned by Mr. Suggs, yes.
Now, from my understanding is that there's been some sort of road operating on this for
Wait a
almost.
minute, Mark.
Okay.
It's not all owned by Mr. Suggs. 700 feet of it is on the south end, which is requested to be closed. That's part of the dam also, isn't it?
I'd
Could
have,
we clarify?
yeah, we'd have to, I'll let Weston
Yeah.
respond.
Yeah, so it is part of the dam. It is part of the dam. The downstream end usually doesn't get as much action as where the spillways are. So in terms of the controls to the dam were owned by Mr. Suggs. There is a part of the structure. So it's this weird three-entity arrangement that makes up this dam.
All right. So where it leaves Route 50 by the hardware store,
Yes.
is that county property, you know, right, or is that across private property too?
That is county
Okay.
property, so it is county road that goes.
So county road goes up until it enters the dam then? Or,
Goes up that, is it Apple Road, that dirt road that's running through that field on the other side?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's.
dirt road section of Apple.
So it runs, I think the county right-of-way, Mark, runs up to,
okay.
there's a portion of Athol Road that is not paved, it's a dirt road, and I think it runs to that point.
Yeah.
So from that point on,
Yeah. All right.
at that point, you haven't reached
You haven't reached the
really-
dam yet.
Or, excuse me?
Yeah, by that point, you haven't reached the dam.
Yeah, you haven't reached the problematic portion of the road.
This is the portion owned by Suggs,
Yeah.
and this is owned by Atkins Historical Trust. This is owned by Mr. Atkins. Down to,
Okay. All right.
so it's three different landowners that own portions of the dam and the dam structure.
Okay. All right. I mean, since there was a road going over there going back to the 1700s, I believe, you know, obviously it wasn't a county road back then, but there was, you know, public access to this going back nearly 300 years. What is, you know, I guess this is a question for, you know, Mr. Baker or Mr. Wilbur or somebody, what is the legal issue with that you know, we obviously had access when the road was there, it wasn't an issue, they couldn't bar the public from it, but now what about restoring what had been open to the public for nearly 3 centuries? What's the legal doctrine there?
That's a question I can't answer.
All right. Mr. Baker, is that anything that,
Well, I don't want to rely on Mr. Wilbur if he's researched it, but generally speaking, what Mr. Strasburg said is correct. A lot of roads in the county are just right-of-ways. We don't own the fee simple to them. So if we own the right-of-way, we can still build the road in the same place it was located before it was washed out. But our problem is what to do with the ground under it.
I think, I had a
That
question.
doesn't answer the question. You still got the dam under it. Then something has to be done.
It's basically, I mean, for lack of any better description, it's basically the air rights from the pond bed to the bottom of the road surface. We have no, to my knowledge, from what I've been told, we have no ownership of those air rights. And we would have no ownership that would allow us to construct bridge pilings, build up a dam. So it's a very, very odd situation. And what you've got to bear in mind, and Weston alluded to it, is that the watershed that drains to that fairly narrow portion is a 20 square mile watershed. A considerable part of that watershed is in the state of Delaware. It's in Sussex County. So we have been experiencing rainfalls here in the past several years, unlike rainfalls that we've seen anytime during my lifetime. So, you know, it begs the question, from a civil engineering standpoint, what standard do you design to if you're going to span that pond bed? I can't answer that.
I mean, we can't be the only county where this is, you know, I mean, you know, these kind of sort of earthen dams, you know, going back hundreds of years. It seems like there would be some sort of case law or something where in the past this has happened somewhere else. I mean, you know, we're not unique here. I mean, is that, I mean, could that be something we could look into, Mr. Baker, if there's case law about this sort of stuff? I mean, so right now, the road still partially exists. You know, it's crumbling probably daily in that area. You know, what if, you know, let's say the Atkins Historical Society, you know, would say, you can build a bridge on our portion, you know, where it breached, because it didn't breach at the spillway, I don't believe. It breached kind of in the middle of the earthen dam. You know, so there's, you know, it's obvious, I mean, I don't know how many feet across it is, but, you know, if we could span that by a bridge using the property on the swamp side, as Mr. Holloway said, I mean, would that be, you know, we'd have, you know, reroute the road slightly to do that. Would that be an option to, because obviously the road's still there, you know, until it falls, you know, into the swamp.
If we were gonna build a bridge, you were gonna be talking about like $5 million and 10 years of environmental permits. I mean, a bridge is just, I mean, that's,
Maybe a road with a culvert. That might be.
well,
The fish patches is probably
we're
the
talking
most
about a
likely.
bridge or culverts.
No, I mean, yeah, listen to the culvert then.
Culverts.
Yeah, I mean,
Fish
could we kind of, you know, move it out a little bit into the Atkins property where it's obviously the road's disappeared, because we have the road exists where it is now, so, you know, would that be, legally, that shouldn't be an issue. Jig it out over into there, and, I mean, it
Well,
would
I
be the
can't-
smoothest of roads.
I can't speak for Mr. Adkins, but Mr. Adkins
trust.
is,
No, I'm talking about the Historical Society, not the landowner that obviously wants the road closed.
It's called the Atkins Historical
it's
Society.
the Adkins Historical
So it's not him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not him, yeah.
I think the thing to consider is that the road is at a certain elevation, and where the current, I'll say natural surfaces, whether it's the swamp side, marsh side, or the former pond side, is there's a drop. So with the road, if we put the road back, there needs to be some sort of slope going down. To rebuild that slope, we would impact the property, both property owners. So while the culvert could be shifted over, or just on the, say, Historical Society's side, the slopes going down for the rest of the road, to rebuild those would be private property on the upstream end. So, yeah.
So if I understand it, you can't build a road without permission of the current landholder.
In this case, because,
case, we can-
yeah, the
So
road
it's
is
all-
higher
so
than the,
all dependent on him.
based on the legal advice that we currently have. I guess to summarize, and Weston, if I'm wrong, let me know, but the least expensive and most environmentally friendly approach to any restoration would be the culverts, the fish passage. You still need
Permission.
the permission of the property owners, one of which has said, I don't want it, and the other has sort of
Wayne,
indicated through his non-action that he's not real interested in talking to us about it.
Mr. Atkins,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Atkins doesn't have anything to do with putting the road back, does he? He just lives close by. Does he have, Mr. Atkins really have anything to do with putting the road back?
I think the portion of the road at Athol Road, I think the portion of the land that runs from that dirt road to the beginning of the dam, I believe is on his property. I'll
He
double
owns the-
check that.
He owns the approach to the dam
Yep.
and a portion
I don't,
of the dam.
but we have a right of way.
Not once you get to the dam.
Yeah, but before you get to the right of way,
Yeah,
before you get
before.
to the dam, so,
But
Right.
if you look at this here,
Yeah.
like his property somehow comes down into here.
Atkins just comes that far?
He comes
Okay.
into it,
Okay.
correct.
Comes right that little dirt road, doesn't
Well, I mean, this is his, and it comes down.
it? Yeah, right, that's what I thought.
But the road already exists on there right now. I mean, so it would simply be, you know, I
That
mean,
didn't wash out. That
yeah,
part
I
of
mean,
the road.
yeah, that didn't wash out. I mean, that's on
That's
solid
completely
ground
intact.
for now.
So the only area we need to do work is owned
Yeah.
by,
Suggs, Mr.
Okay.
Suggs.
so that's the only.
And this is, the person with whom the county was dealing with all those years, and Ed probably dealt with him more than anybody, was Mr. Suggs, I'll call him Mr. Suggs Senior. And he, I think at the time he lived in Phoenix. He's passed away, and the current owner is his son. And we just have not been able to get him to meet with us to discuss what his intentions are, whether or not he would be interested and allowing us to rebuild whatever across the pond bed that he owns.
One question I had, similar to what Councilman Kilmer had asked, Ed, I know nothing about law, that's why I'm going to say this, and then you're going to have to tell me what the situation is. You know, in some instances, people used to always say, if you own a piece of property and someone's been using your driveway for, 7 or 10 or 20 years, then they have the rights to that property, and is that not the same in this case
Well,
here?
I don't think anybody disputes that we have a right to the road. The problem is, you can't do much with the repairing the road unless you get the rights to the air rights, not necessarily air rights, but the mineral rights, so to speak, the land under the road.
But doesn't that land under the road fall within the same guidelines as if you're using someone's property for 20 years, then you take ownership of that property?
It's called easement by necessity, and it don't always work out. That's an experience with that, so anyway.
You're talking about adverse possession.
Adverse
No,
possession,
I mean,
easement by-
the problem would be is, well, we're still changing the land under it from what our easement would have been. We have the right to build the road, but the dam that was under it is another whole question, because that belonged to Mr. Suggs.
And Mr. Wilbur was going to do what I thought was said to be a comprehensive study, review of it. Has he done that at all?
In terms of
I
what
don't
he's
know.
told us.
A legal analysis?
Yeah, and his legal analysis is that we don't have the right to reconstruct a dam, culverts, or a bridge without the approval of the property owner.
I say we do it, I say we put the culverts in, restore the road, and let them sue us. I don't think he will.
Second.
That easy.
Don't forget, in order to build this road back, we're gonna have to do a 2-to-1 slope.
Right.
That means we've got to go 50 feet out of this pond area.
Wait, is that the road or the dam?
Just
Just
the
the
culverts, right?
Well, just to build it back, they will not let us go back unless we do it to a 2.5-to-1 slope.
Plus, we have to
And
do
we're
a
at probably
22-foot right
5-to-1
of way.
slope now. So that means we've got to go 50 to 60 feet at least out into his pond, and also on Acton's Trust. Now, David represents the Acton's Trust, and he said that's not a problem.
Right.
So, we feel like as long as we get the environmental part of that taken care of, that side's not a problem. But if we're still gonna go out, not just building the road back up, we've got to go out into the pond.
Can't we move it farther downstream to where we don't have to go into his pond and have the slope where the road is now? That would take more of the Atkins Trust property. In other words,
You'd
it
have a
would
pretty
be.
wicked bend in the road right there. I don't know.
And more impacts to
Environmental.
non-tidal and tidal wetlands, which that would be nightmarish.
Yeah.
Mr. Baker, you made the comment about the county doesn't usually own the roads, they have a right-of-way, and.
The old ones, correct.
The old roads. I know from some of the old deeds I've seen, you got property, and, sometimes it's not even mentioned about a
Right.
road. The road just appeared at some point in time. And I think John alluded to this a little bit, John Cannon. So you're saying we might own the right-of-way,
Oh, I think we definitely own the right of way.
okay, but we don't own what's under it?
The problem is that when we got the right of way
Yeah,
from the state,
yeah,
there was a dam under it.
yeah.
And I don't think
We
the fact
should-
that it washed out changes the ownership of that dam.
Well, if we
Kinda
owned
like
a
mineral
12, if
rights.
we owned, if they gave us a 12-foot right-of-way, or we assumed a 12-foot right-of-way, I would think that would go however, down. I mean, as far as.
Go down
in
as far as they had it. At that point in time, there was a dam there.
But did it say that it goes down to the dam and
No,
that's
they
it?
don't mention that. It's
Okay,
usually
so-
just surface.
Yeah, it says it's just the surface.
No, I'm saying that usually the right of way is just for traveling across the surface of the land. Anything under it could still be owned by the adjoining property owner.
But I know that, in fact, not so many years ago, we put a culvert in down the road from where I live, under the road. There wasn't a culvert there. Now, it's nothing like the culvert that's needed here. It's probably, what was that culvert you put in there on Forest Grove Road? There by SAP.
Oh, but that's within our right of way.
Yeah,
I mean, that's within the county's.
yeah. Well, this would have to be within our right of way too, but
Right,
it's
but-
underneath, it's under the ground.
Kind of the way I look at it is, let's just say that this is the top of the dam. Our road have right-of-way to or are able to use is sitting in the middle of it and is this thick.
Right.
So that's what we have to work within. So if we were gonna put culverts in, we would be extending outside of our roadway, our road bed, out into private property at this point. I think that's where we're at with the issue of needing to acquire right-of-way.
What if we send them a letter and give them 30 days to respond, and if no response, that means concurrence?
I'm not a lawyer, Ed will have to answer this, but you're now getting into the area of eminent domain.
What communications have been made? What communications have been made?
Executive Culver has, you met with him
I met with him the evening of the,
at the meeting.
Right, I met with him the same evening. He seemed like he was very amicable.
and he was supposed to meet with me the next day, called and canceled. Said he wasn't feeling well, set up another appointment for November, he just called and canceled, no answer for it. Called and canceled that, he was supposed to be here again today, called and canceled that last week. And will not commit on setting an extra time at this point in time.
Do we have his address? Do we have phone numbers?
Yeah, we've got his address. This is historic behavior. It's the best way I could, this is the historic pattern of that landowner's behavior.
Right.
We've been doing this for 20 years with him.
Is this a young
trying to
guy,
get him
or
to,
the
like,
the one I
play
dealt
ball
with
us
was
to
like
give
in
us
his
the
upper
right of way.
80s?
The son.
20 years.
Oh, yeah, he passed away.
Okay,
This is
well,
his son.
I mean, usually the way we got his attention is, like, we wrote him a letter at one time, sometime back in 2009, and said, basically, you know, if it goes out, you're gonna be responsible for the cost. And I think we may have threatened condemnation once before.
It's
Usually then he
2011.
calls and wants to talk.
That was a 2011 letter.
Yeah.
You're right.
Can we do that again?
Well,
I don't really have anything to threaten with.
Because I know we're leaning towards eminent domain, and I know the executive said he didn't want to do that, and I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but there are a lot of people that want that road fixed.
Mr. Baker, can you have eminent
probably
domain
those
just
who
for the,
don't want it fixed.
can you have eminent domain just for a right-of-way?
I'd like to hear that.
So we don't actually have to take his property, but we could have a right-of-way say that, no, we have a right-of-way to restore a road that's existed for possibly close to 300 years, you know, public access to this. We're not gonna take your property, but the county has a right-of-way like they do with every other road through, you know, private property that's, you know, recently built. Is
I mean,
that-
you still have to, you're gonna have that extra land for the slopes.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be taking his, yeah, you could have eminent domain for that, but it's probably not gonna make a lot of difference in the value as to whether or not you take the whole thing or just take it right away.
I've got a question. That 2-to-1 pitch that you were talking about, is there anything around there that's going to affect other than taking up 50 feet on each side of the road?
West.
MDE and DNR are gonna have a field day with that, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that slope was restricted to if we put the dam back.
Okay.
I think if we put a roadway culvert, they may be more forgiving. We may be able to have a steeper slope like
Okay.
what was out there. To put the dam as part of dam safety, it makes the embankment a lot thicker if you go a shallower slope going down to the water.
Do you have to pack the side with anything to keep it in place? Is there
Yeah,
anything
oh,
different?
Yeah, that's standard road
Stabilized.
construction.
Okay.
Not like we're talking about taking his yard to the bottom of the pond.
Well, I mean, I think
Right.
from a,
Former pond.
I think from a
I'm talking
fiscal,
about the new area that we'd have to cover up.
I think from a fiscal standpoint, the most logical approach, if we want to restore the road, is the culvert fish passage idea. And I'll go back to Ed. I recall that historically, senior Mr. Suggs was always concerned about maintaining the pond itself because he felt that that created waterfront property and enhanced the value of his property. So when we get into, again, I'll defer to Mr. Baker, but when you get into a restoration that doesn't allow for the retention of water and the creation of a pond, you have effectively done a partial taking because you've devalued that land, and we're getting into an area of law that gets gets very,
He's got
very,
no pond now.
gets very, very complicated. There's no pond now, so you would make the argument to him, okay, if you want a pond and you want to pond this area, then you're gonna have to build a dam, and we'll be happy to build a road across the dam like the state did years ago. But again, I think that warrants some fairly healthy legal research. I think you're getting into an area that's, for lack, I don't want to, it's a pond, it's a slippery slope.
I agree with what Councilman Holloway said. I mean, we're not taking his yard, we're not taking his hat. Eminent domain, believe me, I don't think anyone, excuse me?
Councilman Matt
Matt Holloway. I'm a lot like Councilman Joe Holloway. I don't believe in eminent domain whatsoever.
It's pretty harsh.
I don't either. A lot of that, though, is, you know, in circumstances where you're not taking the yard, you're not taking a house, you're taking maybe 10, 20 feet of what is just the bottom of a pond in a swamp area, which I don't think is creating a real impact on the owner at all.
But can we go back to what Ed said a little while ago, that when the county had written letters to the elder Suggs, I guess it was, you said that if he didn't maintain it and something happened, he'd be liable for the damage. Well, was that a bluff, or was that based on some sort of solid legal theory? Because we've had now the damage that occurred because it wasn't maintained. So that would seem to be an opening then to do something with it, because if that's what the threat from the county was before, what was the theory back then where, you know, that he would be liable if the pond ended up washing out and damaging county roads?
That's when he gave us the permission to raise the gates, right?
Yeah,
gave us-
he was denying us access to the dam, so we couldn't control it.
He gave us a license agreement
So,
to operate the gates.
so once the county had the ability to do that, then we're responsible.
For the roadbed,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna say this, and this might not sound right, so you sent him a letter, if you sent him a letter saying that if the dam washed out, he'd be responsible, right? Okay, so he gave us permission to raise the gates, and that didn't happen, so doesn't that mean we're responsible now?
For the repairing the road, yeah,
Yeah,
likely.
okay.
Well, when he
Which we're
called
trying to
in,
do, but we can't do without his permission.
Right.
my question would be, when he called in,
Yeah.
what was his tenor? I mean, what was his, how was he leaning? Was there
I
any?
didn't speak with him. Executive Culver spoke with him.
What do you, how was he, I mean, where was he?
Seemed to want to be helpful. I even asked him, you know, I knew he was selling the property, or he had the property for sale. I asked him how much he was asking for the property. I thought we bought it all, bought the pond, everything. That would be the simplest thing to do. Never had this problem face us again. He wouldn't give me a price. He couldn't remember what he was asking for all of a sudden. So
Was it ever listed?
I talked to J.B. Wells today. J.B. said that they had worked on it a couple of times, but they never got a listing on it. So I don't know.
He may have found that overwhelming to be, you know, approached with you know, the proposal to sell his entire pond. And of course, you know, he may shut down entirely on that. But if you're wanting to revert back to, can we have 10 feet? Can we have 20 feet? It might be a different situation. You know, he might be avoiding simply because he doesn't want to get into entire selling off his property. And I think the public, to know, I guess we need to know where we're headed, I guess. I guess the public has already, I think, expressed that the road with the culvert, they can understand that and they can accept that, and they feel that would be an acceptable way to go, you know, especially in consideration of the cost of the dam.
Well, I mean, do you, a member of the public up?
If you'd like,
I
it's,
mean, could we hear from Mr. Kinney? And, I mean, I think he represents the public in the area. I mean,
Podium.
he's been listening. It'd be interesting to hear what he has to say about what we're talking about here.
Just a few points.
Pull your mic up so we can hear.
Is that better?
thanks.
Yes, sir.
2005, when it washed out, the county fixed the road. There was not a concern about the slopes. They just went in and fixed it. Now, it was not as bad as it is now, but the road had eroded other than the blowout area, about the same. If the gates had been managed properly, we wouldn't have had a washout. Simple. The dam was holding up very well, and until there was erosion over top of the road that eroded away half of the road bed, the dam was holding. But after so long, it couldn't take it anymore and it just gave up. So the problem is not the dam, the problem was the management of the dam and who had control of it. Apparently the county had control of it, but we weren't maintaining it. We weren't prepared for the type of event that we had that day. There had been no maintenance done ahead of time, that we had to react to get the gate out with an excavator or whatever that thing is you use to do it with. There were no chains, no way of hooking on to it. It actually created some safety issues with these guys trying to get it out in such bad conditions. The grass, we were down, Mark and I were down there Monday or Tuesday. The grass over top of the gates had built up quite a bit, so it was also restricting the flow of water. So the point is, if we as a county had taken control of that and managed that, we wouldn't be talking about this tonight and talking about spending several $100,000 or several $1 million to put a dam back. I like the idea of the pipes, but I'll be honest with you, most of the people want the dam. I know the fire company wants the dam, and I would think that the people that live out in the gristmill area would want the dam, so the fire company could draw water if any of those folks had a fire, because right now, the only place they could go is in Mardella to the pond, to the creek, or to the firehouse for a slow fill of the fire trucks. The pond actually made for a faster fill. They used that when they had a roadside stand that was on fire.
It's called a dry hydrant.
Do what?
It's called a dry hydrant.
Well, they actually just drafted out of the pond.
Okay. So there was no dry hydrant?
There's no dry hydrant there.
It'd be nice if it was.
But talking about the fish passage, I like the idea of the elevated culverts, so that would maintain some water in the dam. We don't have to have a full pond. If we have coverage, you can keep the woody plant growth down. The fish could still possibly get through the culverts. DNR fellow that was at our meeting in Mardella talked about the fish not being able to have 365-day access to the pond because there were spots in Barron Creek that the fish couldn't come past anyway unless we had the spring rains and all the water. Now, property ownership. You keep talking about Mr. Atkins on one side and Mr. Suggs on the other. Across the road from that is the Atkins Historical Community that owns along that road. Our board has talked about working with the county to allow expansion of the road over on our side if you can't use Mr. Suggs' side on the pond. We're willing to work with you, but we want something in return. We want a pond, or we want to work towards that end. And I think that's only fair, You talked about Mr. Atkins owning the road from Athol Road down to the pond. Well, if he would only own half of that because Atkins Historical owns the other half.
Right.
So we're the third party in this, and it's not just the folks that own the pond and own the house next to the pond. And Mr. Atkins is Jimmy Atkins, who owns the house that does not want the road open, is because of the traffic that comes by there. But what I see going on right now, people are driving down to the sign that's in the middle of the road in front of his house and parking there. And on the other side, where Mr. Suggs' house is, I see a lot of trash. So something's going on down there. We have a big drug problem in Wicomico County. That's going to be a good hangout for stuff like that. You can already see evidence of things happening in that area where nobody lives. Talked to Mr. Suggs the day after our meeting in Mardella. He come into the store. We had a conversation about what his plans were, and he did say he's planning on moving back here to get the house ready to sell. He also said he would like to sell some property to the county, to sell, not give. If that's any information you can use. His health is very bad, and I know that him and his wife both have health issues. They are hard to communicate with, but I tried to call him today and I didn't get an answer either, so. And I'd be glad to answer any other questions anybody has.
David, just sitting here thinking, you know, about your historical society and the pond, and I don't know whether, you know, of course, Mr. Suggs isn't here, so he can't answer this question. What would be the chances of your society, your group, in some case taking control of the pond if he would release it, donate it, sell it, whatever? Would your group be interested in the pond property? As far as you own the land on the other side of the dam, so, I mean.
We don't have the money to buy it. That's what
Well, I
you're
know
asking.
that, I would assume that, but I mean, if it was,
We would accept.
if it, you know,
A
some
donation
people
of that,
do
yes.
donations, you know, for
Mhm.
tax reasons and things like that, so is that an angle? I don't know if that's an angle that could be used when somebody was talking to Mr. Suggs or not,
If you can get in touch
you know,
with him.
so, if you ever get to talk to him.
We would accept it if it was available, but
Okay.
like I say, we have no money to buy it with.
Yeah, I understand.
I like the idea of the pond.
And thank you for helping to host the town forum, Addie Eckerd's Town Forum in Mardell too. Mr. Kenny, appreciate that.
So how did it work in 2005 then, when the county repaired all that? I mean, if the county didn't own it?
Dam safety was okay with a restoration. They're not okay now. Dam safety wants, if we were to put it back, the entire dam, the entire embankment has to be upgraded.
Well, that dam safety is separate from the private property issue, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
how'd you work on the private property then in 2005 if the owner didn't give permission to do that back then? I mean, I don't think you were here, Weston.
Yeah, I wasn't here, but if I had to imagine it was being,
2005 is completely different than what we have up there right now. 2005 was a washout
road, right?
on the Adkins side of the roadway.
Okay, yeah, it wasn't a full
wasn't a
blowout.
breach of the dam
The dam
and
didn't breach.
in a
Yeah,
gaping
no, I know
hole
the
in the
dam
middle of
didn't
it.
breach, but, so it was, so the Atkins owns that, that'd be the west side of
Yes.
the road. They own that slope there.
yes.
And so they own basically up to the road then? And the slope?
Correct.
Or do they own half the road?
I think the explanation is we have the air rights
Okay.
on the road, and it would probably be dead center if I had to guess. I'm not positive.
Well, it would be nice to have some legal analysis about the ownership and what exactly, you know, had happened in the past. And, you know, again, it seems like, you know, from what I understand, it was common for folks to put up these dams for mill ponds. And then, you know, I think it was, you know, back in the 1700s, it was the king who, you know, said you had to have a road over them. So this can't be the first instance where there's a private road on top of this old, or a public road on top of an old mill pond that is washed out and destroyed the road. I mean, it seems like there should be something that we could find in case law, but again, not a lawyer, so I guess that's why we pay our lawyers to do that sort of stuff.
So as I mentioned, dam safety is involved now, so that's changed the dynamics a bit from 2005. It also should be noticed, while the county has license to access the gates and open the gates, the county does not have sole responsibility over those controls. On the day of the event, I think the first call came to the 911 call center at 6:57 a.m., and we were out there a little after 7 a.m. I think when we determined the main spillway was broken, possibly from other attempts at opening it, private attempts at opening it, we had to get heavy equipment in to fully open it. So I think it was 7:40 approximately by the time we got the main spillway open. So
The gates were always open by heavy equipment. That's how they're designed. They always had a chain on the gates, but unfortunately, prior to us getting there, someone broke the chains and the gates prior to our arrival. So
Really?
that complicated things.
So from a county response, while we did have access, as soon as we were notified, we had Public Works crews out there and we had our heavy equipment when we realized the equipment we had at the time could not adequately open the gates. We had to go bigger. I think it's also important to note from the conversation of Mr. Kenny that we also have now a second property owner that's unwilling to give us property unless there's a pond. So that's saying we can't get property unless we have a dam now. I do think the raised culverts likely won't work from the fish passage standpoint, but we could see what DNR is willing to entertain.
Councilman Dodd, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was thinking, Mr. Kenny, did he leave? There he is. He mentioned the drafting site for the fire department, how important it is, and I don't think the town of Mardella has hydrants.
They have a dry hydrant, like you're referring to.
A dry
on
hydrant.
Fire and Protection Road.
But they don't have one in that area, so that's a valuable
And
water source.
We
it sounds
could, we
like.
could still install one, and that was mentioned at the meeting too. I guess it's the future president. of
DNR
the-
would install it, or we
No,
would?
we would be glad to install it at install them at any one of our bridges for any fire department that requests it.
Because I know DNR does it if you ask them. But that it sounds like it's a valuable water source for the fire department, especially when your house is burning down.
We have a lot of them in the county, dry hydrants.
Right, and they're very important.
How much is, let's say we don't do any, don't restore the road, don't restore the dam, how much is cleanup gonna be out there? That site's a mess right now, and it's obviously can't remain in that position, so how much is cleanup gonna be? And is that, when you talk about the road's gonna be, $200,000 to $400,000, is that in addition to the cleanup, or if you rebuild the road, that would then take care of, some of the cleanup that cost to be absorbed in the road building?
The difficulty with the cleanup is similar to rebuilding it. We would have to stop the erosion, we would have to stabilize property that is not ours. So we would be doing stabilization efforts. We would be placing stone or, riprap, or we'd be putting dirt down and stabilizing it with grass like we were restoring it. For the 600 feet leading up to the breach on each end, the stabilization efforts would occur outside of the county right away.
So, obviously, you're gonna have to do either, you have to clean it up. You're gonna have to clean it up, is that correct? that's.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have
Public
to.
safety issue.
Yeah.
without-
Yeah, and sedimentation, there's environmental effects from that.
So, how, if, we don't restore the road, don't restore the dam, has to be cleaned up, it involves some of the same issues. So how are you proposing to deal with those issues then for the cleanup?
We're in a holding pattern until we can get better.
Still need a construction easement, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay,
so-
MDE's aware that the sediment and erosion control issues are private issues. MDE's aware that the county's not responsible for sediment
Yeah.
coming from a private dam. We would certainly take care of our road bed and cleaning up our road bed or stabilizing what we could in the area. But at this point in time, it's a private dam that's causing a sediment and erosion control issue into waters of the state.
Do you think Mr. Scudds would respond to MDE?
He may.
So.
He hasn't responded to us in 20
A
years.
lot of the stabilization would be the exact same if we were putting culvert pipes in. So other than the breaching or fixing the breach,
Yeah.
with designed culvert pipes at certain inverts and at certain elevations, the rest of it we would have to do anyway. So it would make sense that instead of just going out there and not reopening the road, that we reopen it with culvert pipes. But we're limited, our hands are tied from the property standpoint.
So if you can walk me through this here then. So you decide not to reopen the road, but at some, that's, the Suggs property is, the waters of the state. It's obviously draining into to Barron Creek right now. It's affecting that. So then the state would force him to pay to clean that up at that point? So he'd be on the hook for a pretty big bill then at that point.
There's a chance that all entities involved get a consent order from the state.
Okay.
So we would have to clean up our road, and the upstream and downstream owners would have to clean up their sections.
All right.
Have you ever looked at the double mills down behind Mockingbird?
No.
Have you ever been down there and looked at that?
I don't think so.
They had a dam.
Yeah.
It blew through.
Mhm.
It's still blowing through.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. Nobody stabilized it. It was private. I don't know if MD's going to go in there however many years after the fact, 30 years after the fact, and tell them that they need to stabilize their banks, but they get to a point that they stabilize themselves somewhat. They grow vegetation and they become stable. So would MDE do that in the case with Suggs and his unstable banks? I don't know. They're more stringent now. They may go in there and give Suggs a consent order and tell him he has to clean it up. I don't know.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that if that was the case, that if there has to be some cleanup, and the state's going to force someone to do it, that would be the avenue then that we could use if it's basically cleaning up is, if it's just a little bit more work to put a culvert in, and if we're cleaning it up anyways, that seems like that would be a good angle to use then to do that. I mean, again, legality and what the state does, it depends on that, but that seems like a good angle to be able to take to get the road back then. Because, I mean, it does seem like it's continuing to erode. I mean, I've looked at it, a couple times, and it's worse off now than it was weeks ago, and it's not getting better, especially with all this rain that could be coming. So I don't know. I guess that's something to.
Yeah, from a public policy standpoint, Mark, I agree with you. You don't want to leave it in the condition it's in. It's not responsible. But we have to have the authority to enter on private property.
I mean, Again, I've heard that, the issue was never about rebuilding the road. That's what was stated in the press. And I think all of us on the council probably are more than happy to assist you in any way we can to making sure that the road, removing whatever obstacles it takes to at least getting the road back and possibly getting the dam back. But I think there's a more immediate need for the road, obviously, there because of the travel issues and everything we heard in Mardella Springs. And if we can get the road, done first, and then we can argue about the dam and the money and stuff like that later. I think that, let's do what we agree on, let's do the 80% we agree on, and then we can argue about the 20%,
We typically, I would say, given our fiscal environment, building a dam for cosmetics probably isn't a good use of taxpayer money. We build dams for public safety. It's not a public safety dam, never was a public safety dam.
I understand. I mean,
If there's no pond, there's no risk. That's the whole thing with the dam association. If there was a stream of water going through there, there's no risk. It's when you pond that water that you create a risk to public safety. And this, of course, this is a low hazard dam, but that's when you create the risk, is when you decide to try to hold back water, not let it go.
I understand. I mean, and we have made that choice in the fact where Morris Mill, we could have taken Morris Mill out. We chose to keep that in, I believe. As elected officials, we chose that, and we all played a role in that and made that choice. So, there are, we in the state, I don't think was happy about that maybe, but they let us, the state doesn't like dams. I understand that, but it's ultimately a political decision about what happens there and about how the money gets spent, obviously. So.
Well, I think it'd be nice to get a real legal review on what our options are.
We can do that.
Where we're headed with this, because right now we're sort of, I would say floundering, but we're not really
Spinning our wheels.
spinning our wheels. I think it is important what Mark touched on as to just where these costs are going to be separated from MDE's perspective, whether or not they will find that the owner's responsible for what would you call it, mitigation, or is that not the right term?
Yeah, mitigation.
Yeah, they might find that is the case, and that could be an incentive for the owners to cooperate with us. Not being heavy-handed, it's just it may be a true reality. We don't even know that. And I think we should get some confirmation from MDE on what this type of positions would be. It's been suggested, that we move the road, so that we're not
Realign the right of way.
Yeah, realign it. That could be an option. So I think, we should get an idea of what our legal positions might be on every scenario, what the options are and the costs are on what we would be building. And I think you've pretty much got that in hand, outside of
We'd want to fine-tune that.
moving the road. And the other thing is to, create a formal line of communication with anyone who is involved in the ownership, and to talk to them and find out, no matter how it might be, registered letter, whatever it might be, to get try to iron down some real communication, because obviously communication we do not have right now.
Maybe you should ask him if he has an attorney that our attorney can talk to, and that might think more about it. Apparently, he's going to be hard to deal with just from access, not necessarily that he's a bad guy or anything like that. But,
Yeah, I don't know what it's.
I mean, when we try to work with him, you got to be able to call him, you got to have somebody to call and talk to. I mean, you can't. And I want to thank Bob for his efforts here of trying to get up with him. And
Yeah, I think the last time, that's how we really got the license agreement done, is that Ed was able to make contact with Mr. Suggs' attorney, and that's how the license agreement was done. So,
Sometimes you just have to do that.
I don't know what
Doesn't
his-
sound pretty, but.
I really
sometimes
don't
you
know what his personal circumstances are, other than he's canceled meeting after
Yeah,
meeting after
yeah.
meeting, and it gets a bit frustrating.
Any other questions?
Just thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you very much, John.
Thanks a
Well,
lot.
thank you for this. This is very informative.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
And appreciate Mr. Kinney coming in too. So I know he's probably rather be home with his family than be sitting through our council meeting. So.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Next item we have on the agenda is the, hang on a second, Phyllis. The Delmarva Organics Recovery LLC lease agreement.
See you, Bunk.
Hey, Bunky. Sorry. Well, okay, all right. Because you have a new appointment, if you want to talk about it, that'd be great. Thanks.
One change from the agenda is that James Whitehead was unable to make it. This is John Ferretti. He's part of the Delmarva Organics Recovery LLC, and he'll be able to answer, help assist with any questions on the lease we have to date.
Okay. Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. We'll let you start if you feel that you have an introduction prepared, or you just want to start with questions.
No, let's just start with questions. I think we're...
Okay.
I will say one of the things, if you read through it, is that we're still finalizing the site plan, exactly what they're gonna take out, or what they're gonna request to lease. And a part of that will, there's some mention of forest conservation in here, and that would be working with Jack's office. We have a in-house bank that we pull from, so we would take care of that. Previously, there was some comments on the bond, and we have a provision in there under section 5. And if there's any question, because I know that was a concern brought up previously.
I want to thank you for putting that in, but I do have a question. How do you arrive at the amount of the bond? I see you didn't have that in there.
Yeah, we did have and the language may have been removed, but the intent was to do what we do with our public infrastructure. So when a subdivision is being built and there's going to be roads and storm drain pipes and all of that, we have the developer submit to us a cost, what they believe that is valued. If we agree upon that, then that's what the bond is issued for.
But don't you escalate that for further down the road, as far as,
Sometimes.
cost?
Sometimes, in the case of, pavement, the asphalt prices change over
Right,
time.
right.
But in the case of this, what we would be looking for is the estimated cost to remove any of the organic material. So if they're full operations and they just up and walk away, there's going to be organic material that hasn't been processed, stuff that's mid-processing, stuff that's post-processing. There will be some chemicals involved. I know sulfuric acid is involved in ammonia removal. So we would need costs to completely remove all of that. We think that most of the buildings could be repurposed if they were fully cleaned out. They mentioned broom sweep. That's not fully legally defined, but it's generally accepted as removing all personal property, trash, and cleaning up after it. So I think how we would handle it is we would request a cost estimate calculated by DOR, and then we would confirm it, likely using consultant help, just to make sure that the values look right, and then we would request a bond in that amount.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for putting that in there. I'm sorry, your name again, I'm sorry.
John Ferretti.
Farini?
Ferretti.
Farini?
Ferretti, yes.
Ready?
I noticed in your presentation, you used a lot of companies as stakeholders. Could you describe what, stakeholders to us, what we usually see is people that have a monetary interest in the business. did all these companies, are they invested in your business? The Purdue, Tyson, Willard, Delmarva Power, Food Line, Safeway, Cisco, are they monetarily invested in this?
No, those would be potential suppliers of material, those companies you're talking about there. But the ones that are invested in the business, there's 4 members in the LLC.
I got that.
In the LLC,
But
right.
you listed these folks as stakeholders.
Well, I would say when you say stakeholders, they're going to be suppliers.
They're just
They'll be
customers.
suppliers to us, right? Yeah. So, we would be looking for those companies to, supply us either, as manure, DAF sludge, other organic materials.
Okay, all right.
Weston, when you were talking about the rent offsets, et cetera.
Yes.
The total of the 24,000 yearly.
Yes.
But in a sense, we're also, I wouldn't call it an offset, but we're also forgiving about 75,600 with the tipping fee rate change, that 50%. Is that correct or not?
We're trying to think of, in a way, the 50% tipping fee would, I think it would hurt them in a way because it takes them longer to meet that rent offset. Whereas if they were paying the full amount, they would hit that offset sooner, and then we would be profiting on all recyclable materials at that point. There is some benefit, but what we modeled it after was the construction and demolition processing facility. In a similar vein, they will increase the recycling rate of the county, much like the construction and demolition processing that came in before. And the thought is, and I don't know how it's written in here, that the half off the tipping fee would be tied to their recycling rate, what they generated, similar to that construction and demolition processing change we had earlier. The thing is, the amount of recyclables they will be generating versus what tipping fees they will produce, it's to a point where they would get a reduced tipping fee for all I guess, things going across our scales, if that makes sense.
In terms of the recycling rate that the county has, we're already above what the state requests, right?
Right now, yes.
So that's scheduled to keep increasing, is that correct? The state is, and what happens if we don't meet that?
Just like any other state mandate, if we don't meet it, they will do a consent order. Many times they want to work with us. They're not coming down heavy-handed unless they feel we're being negligent. They would ask for a transition plan. How do we propose to get up to the new recycling rates? I believe our mandatory number is 25%, given our size and location, and we are consistently at least above 35. We're now in the low 40s and creeping up from there. So we're covered for now, but the goal is to get to zero waste, and at least those thresholds. We haven't heard when they could go up, but they're ultimately looking at probably at 80% diversion rate in the future. So we would have to, by doing, I'll say, measures like this, working with private entities that can increase our recycling rate, or like the construction and demolition processing resolution we had previously, that's a way of getting that number up so that we always stay above the state mandated threshold. So I think we're in good shape right now, and with the measures we're taking both internally and externally, I think we'll always stay above that.
Do you have a project or facility just like this one that mirrors this one anywhere?
We don't have one that mirrors this exactly. So our technical partner, this DVO, as you'll see, they build 100 of these digester plants, around the country in the United States, but not one that's exactly like this one. This one's going to be a mixed-use facility, so we'll be able to take manure, we'll be able to take DAF sludge, and we're going to take other organic materials into it. The key for us in here is being able to have enough supply, to feed it. So that is going to be a little different than some of the other ones that they've built.
So will most of this waste come from in Wicomico County, or will it come from without out of the county?
It's gonna be a combination of both. So, basically, we need to get the recipe right. So the recipe it's kind of, if I describe an anaerobic digester, it's kind of like your stomach. And so, we have to get the right amount of fats and greases and solids and, everything that's gonna go into it. And as we source these different materials and as we approach the integrators to see what fluids we can get from them, we gotta test those and we gotta see how that's gonna fit with our digester, and then how much manure we're gonna need, and then we can begin to add some of these other materials. And so we wanna get the right balance so we can generate the right amount of energy to make it a profitable endeavor. At the same time, we wanna be able to create, solids that are, soluble as fertilizers as well. So it's gonna be a balance.
The gentleman that was here a couple weeks ago, of course, everybody's interested in getting rid of poultry manure. That's the big thing. It's kind of like solar farms, people are
Yes.
interested. He stated that, and we don't have the minutes, unfortunately, the recorder wasn't operating properly, but he stated that it would probably only use about a truckload of poultry manure a day or something like that.
Jamie said one of the 10 to 12 trucks will be poultry litter,
Yeah,
and the rest will be DAF sludge or organics.
I think our mass balance right now calls for about 40 tons. It'll be about 40 tons a day, somewhere in that. Is that
everything?
It's about 240 tons a day of everything.
okay.
And it's about 40 of manure. And again, that mixture could change a little bit, so it's not, that's what we're targeting. And we would like to find more manure, more sources of manure, but this first source that we're going after right now, we think is about 40.
Okay.
So, look, the ultimate, maybe, to go back to Jamie's question, he put in there about the stakeholders in this. I think, one of the things that he probably, misuse of terms maybe, but the stakeholders really are all these other businesses that are trying to reduce the spread of manure in land applications and the DAF sludge in the land applications. And so they are kind of stakeholders from being citizens of the area and trying to make that happen, and this being one solution that can contribute towards that.
Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Ferretti, your comment was that you don't have an aerobic digester similar to this one in operation, but you do have organic digesters in operation?
Yes, there's, not, my business personally does not, but DVO, the technology that we're
DVO
using
does.
for this,
So your
DVO has,
LLC does not at this time?
this does not, this is
Okay.
this is a development project that we're putting together
Okay.
here. But DVO, who is one of the partners in this,
Right.
has built about 100 of these in the United States. So it's proven technology, it's not, nothing brand new.
So the manure you end up with when you're done, does that get trucked out or does that get packaged? I know Purdue has a packaging plant in Bridgeville. How is this handled?
It will most likely be trucked out, okay, so,
Bulk,
and,
yeah.
it'll be a bulk, right? So
Uh-huh.
we don't have that buyer for that just yet, but it will most likely all be trucked out.
I see.
Larry?
I thought the guy last week said that there would be no waste leaving. I thought he said it was all going to digest.
Well, so out of the digester at the end, you have a solid waste. So you do have, we call it waste, but so you still have a product that is a fertilizer product that can then be sold, that, other people are gonna be interested in buying. So
So,
it's-
your company has never done this before?
we formed a development company just solely for developing this
But
particular
locally,
project.
you have no experience doing this?
Well, let me say locally, so let's just,
Well, it says
DVO, the technology side of this has built 100 of these, so there's a lot of experience in doing this. Jamie that was here last week, he's been
Yes.
involved in these projects in the past. Myself personally, I have a background in engineering, but I came into this project as one of the people financing the development of the project. But I have not built a digester, I have not developed a digester project in the past.
I just trying to get a feel of how successful this is gonna be. And I'm looking at these figures right here. How much revenue is gonna come back to Wicomico County?
At a minimum, it'll be $36,000 annually. That can increase once they hit the rent offset, so
Okay.
2/3 of that 36,000, which is $24,000, can be offset through recycling revenue that we get. And whatever we get for the cardboard and metal, we're only gonna credit them 80% of that value. So whatever we bid it, when we bale our recyclable materials and sell it, if we're getting $100 a ton, we're only gonna credit them $80 a ton. So we're gonna get some extra money there. And then the tipping fee revenue, we're going to use as part of the offset. Once they hit that 24 $200,000 threshold, that's gonna come directly, like, we benefit from that additional revenue.
So it shows guaranteed rent 36,000 and the rent office said 24,000. So then, are you saying we're gonna get 12,000 from that?
At a minimum, 12,000 cash, but we'll also be getting money from the recycle, they are giving us these recyclables.
So we're not getting the guaranteed 36,000? As it says.
Not in cash, not necessarily in cash.
Okay.
They're giving us aluminum and metal and
Okay.
cardboard that they could be selling themselves.
Well, revenue sounds like cash to me, especially when down at the bottom it says total estimated revenue 100,760.
Based on those numbers, yeah, that's what they were looking at, based on.
So we're
I think
hoping to
that's
get
an
that,
annual.
that's not.
Yeah, it's approximate, again, it goes back to their, what I've called previously the mass balance, but when they start bringing in, say, chicken litter, that's gonna be different than if they're bringing product from Cisco. Because Cisco's gonna come with cardboard, gonna come
Right.
with metal, and then that will go to our recycling number, and it'll go towards our recycling revenue. So we will be getting revenue from the recyclables they give us. We will be getting some revenue from the tipping fees for when they have to take material up on the hill to dump it. The other thing that we're looking at that's not part of the lease, but is the power purchase agreement. We could purchase electricity from them at a cheaper rate than, and we're currently looking at those options than what we pay Delmarva Power for electricity. So those, while that's not direct money, that's not a briefcase of cash, that is savings in terms of what we pay in electric bills each year. So there's at least those measures that we're considering.
Okay.
And if you consider like the stuff coming from Cisco, all that stuff would end up into a landfill today, okay? And so the good thing is we're gonna extract all the organic stuff out of that, and all the inorganics are gonna end up into the landfill. So while you might say, well, okay, that's a lower tipping fee, but at the same time, it's really done a lot to reduce the amount of organics going into landfills.
And we are selling aluminum right now anyway, aren't we?
Yes, but they would be, what complicates it is while they are pulling product from Wicomico, if they pull it from Cisco, that's out of Wicomico. If they pull it from Kraft in Dover, that's out of Wicomico. The fact that it's processed here means we get the recycling rate, and it means we get those recyclables that could stay in Worcester, Somerset, or in Sussex County, Delaware, or wherever.
And as I understand it today, you don't have a Tiger separator to separate the organics from the inorganics?
No, so just like the construction and demolition processing or Stone Tech does recycled concrete, we do not have that equipment to do that type of work. In the case of this Tiger separator, this is a machine that you could take an unopened box of Cisco food, throw it in there, and it will separate, this is the organics, this is the food that was in those cans, this is the metal, this is the cardboard. And right now, if we have cases where, say, Kerry Distributors has a recall on some sort of alcoholic beverage. They drive up to the top of the hill, they dump it. What we could do now, I don't know how the alcoholic.
It's a popular day at the landfill.
Yeah. They videotape everything to show that it was
somebody there
properly
waiting for it.
disposed of, and we have the compactor roll.
I get that much.
But
I get that much.
what I'm saying is the unopened products, if there's a recall or something to it, would just go on top of the hill without pulling out the recyclables or the organics.
Cut down on the seagulls.
Yes, or any other vector we have.
And this Tiger separator is about a $500,000 investment in and of itself that we're gonna put the capital up to buy that.
And I like this idea. I just want to get a better feeling of success.
And our anticipation is that we will have collected a lot more materials that will go beyond that $24,000, which the county will end up benefiting from. That's, that should deem the success.
And I'm hoping for it.
I think it's, I think it goes without saying that we're certainly pleased that you're looking to make a $29 million investment in the Wicomico County area, plus the jobs, et cetera. We're just trying to do our due diligence with any questions that we might have had. The 15-year contract, that's no increases on the rent for 15 years, is that correct, on the lease?
Yes, and then it would increase, I think, by CPI or.
Minimum
Is it 7%?
Minimum of 7%.
Yeah, I think it was minimum
For the first
7%.
5 years and 3.5 for the next 5 years?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just going to go through some things that I had. The,
Free electric. Not free electric, but at a, we have a solar field, through Solar City at solid waste property in Delmar, at our Delmar Convenience Center. And that each year is estimated to save us $40,000 because we are buying electricity from those solar panels cheaper than we are from however Delmarva Power's generating it and getting it to us.
You can't sell me on solar, those guys, because my thing is, if I buy it and they're sitting on my house, I shouldn't have a bill.
So that's, yeah, that's a difference.
As long as you bought the panels.
Yeah, they don't want to sell you that. They want to put them up there and.
Yeah, that's their business
Yeah.
model, is they put it on there yeah, if we bought every one of those solar panels, now we don't have the in-house, I'll say staff that has the knowledge, the technical knowledge to design that and lay that out. But if we bought those panels, put up that capital cost, other than the maintenance, we would be getting that electricity straight. We wouldn't be paying them back. In this case, Solar City's model is they will front the cost of installation, whether it's on your roof or on our property, and we buy electricity from them at a reduced rate.
So why can't we just get this, with this group, why do we still have to buy it from a reduced rate? Why can't it just be free? Part of the deal.
It's part of their business model. I can let John go into.
Well, I mean, it's a significant portion of the cash flow that supports the investment. I mean, this is a $25 million investment, so, there has to be a return of cash coming back.
The,
Can't give all of it to us.
part of the lease, part of the lease under Section 8, it referenced that the tenant would have access to the Wicomico County landfill scale house during normal operating, it says operating house, I think it means operating hours.
Yeah, I think that
To
is
weigh
ours.
the tenant's incoming waste loads only, so they would be weighing their own loads?
So we would be keeping track of the loads they bring in. Partially for our data purposes, maybe down the road, we talk wear and tear of the scales. Right now, 10 trucks a day is insignificant compared to what we have on a normal day-to-day basis. However, we would share that data with them. Rather than have them create their own scales and have a separate haul road and all of that, we're offering to let them use our scales. We'll weigh in, weigh out. Typical transactions, they have to, if Joe resident is going across the scales, you have to check out, you have to pay. That takes time. This would just be weigh in, weigh out.
So it's just saying that they have access to them, not that they're going to operate them.
Well, it says they have access to weigh the tenant's incoming waste loads only.
Right, but they're not going to have their own man.
No, they're not, we're not gonna have any of their staff in the scale house. It'll just be our folks, and we'll be keeping track of their tonnage in and out.
Tenant shall have access without charge to the Wicomico County landfill scale house during its normal operating hours to weigh tenant's incoming waste loads only.
Take the word house out of there.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
hours, operating
Hours, yeah.
hours, during its normal operating hours, I thought.
No, where you said scale house. Did you read scale house?
No.
Yeah.
Tenant shall have.
Wicomico County landfill scale house?
Yes.
Take the
Section
word
C.
house out of there.
Okay,
It's
scale.
just access to the scale.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
During its
You're right.
normal, thank you. During its normal.
No,
hours to
you're
weigh.
correct, you're correct. Part of that was when we were looking at how we would earn revenue leasing this property to them. A part of it was maybe we do it based on the number of vehicles going across the scale or the tonnages. What we proposed turned out different than that through negotiations. So yeah, that house, the word house should be removed. Part of that is also to say that they only use it during our working hours. We're not gonna be open special hours for them, so they have to know when we're open and abide by those.
Have you jumped through the hoops with MDE on this?
My understanding, and maybe John knows more, is that the only permit that they're required is regarding the air permit. And I'm not sure where they are on this. They estimate a 18-month construction period.
Air permits were taking 6 months to get.
I think so. I think they're about 6 months. So I know they've been working on it.
We are. We expect to have all of our permitting, we hope by, middle of April, beginning of May at the latest, we hope. And that's.
So your application's in for it already?
Yeah, the application's already in for the air permit. We've started on the engineering, so
They did a application to PJM, which oversees the electrical connections, just to make sure. So they've already invested significant resources in getting these initial permits.
It also states in section 8 that the landlord, at the landlord's sole expense, shall be responsible for creating any necessary conservation easement. What are you anticipating?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned in the beginning. The conservation easement is forced conservation, if any is required. We've had some talk internally about either removing that or because it's part of the site development. If it's required, we have banks on site because we're periodically having to cut down trees or plant trees elsewhere for landfilling purposes. Or our Barrow pit is the most recent example. We had to remove some trees so that we had opened up some new areas to dig for soil. We also removed some trees in anticipation of constructing a new cell. We've been handling forest conservation in-house, and I think one of the agreements is instead of burdening them with having to find a forest mitigation bank somewhere in the county and paying them, we could handle that.
Do you know what those costs entail?
Not yet, because it's dependent on how big their development is and how much site they're looking to lease, and we're still working through that. So whatever the final layout is, that will determine if forest conservation is needed.
Is it 100,000? Is it 10,000?
I'm not positive right now. Yeah.
The reason I ask is
Yeah.
because, I mean, we're talking about a legal document, signing the lease, and there's a, clause in here that we're exposing ourselves to an expense, and we don't even know what that could be.
I just say it's likely very minor, given the site itself is not forested currently, and the fact that we mitigate our tree removal consistently in-house.
Without cost.
Without cost.
Right.
We work with Jack Lennox's office to determine what do we need to have planted, what do we need to put in easements, and we just take it. It's
So you get planning and zoning input as well?
correct. Oh,
Yeah.
totally. Their building inspectors and all have already looked at the earlier draft of the plans.
I'm going to step back about 8 or 9 years now, and some of the issues we had at the landfill. I know you say they won't have access to the scale house or scales, other than opening hours. Will anybody from this firm have access to any other areas of the landfill, say where they could drive a truck or a pickup or something in and unemployed? In other words, will this be fenced off, gated off from the rest of our landfill?
It's going to be very similar to how Wicomico operates.
That's the folks that do the generating.
Yeah, Wicomico is the company that we lease property to that takes the methane generated from the landfill and produces electricity. They have their own premises. They have it fenced. They have to get through our fences to get to it. So could they get out of their fence and ride around the landfill? There is a potential. There is a potential for that, but we do have cameras. We do have, maybe we could bump it up, but we do have situations where, after hours, all our gates are locked, and we have cameras watching things, so we'll know who enters, who exits, and deal with it that way.
I know, John, you look a little bewildered, but we had a big theft operation going on out there about 10 years ago where they were driving trucks in and stealing diesel fuel after hours, and things got a little carried away there. So
Just curious why somebody would want to wander around a landfill, but I guess.
It was quite profitable to the ones that were, I think.
Well, what I will say is our fuel tracking system
Right.
is intense, and we try to keep on top of it to make sure every drop is accounted for. So if something like that did happen, we'd be able to track it a lot faster, and it would come up a lot quicker.
All right.
What was the need for the appraisal procedure? Wasn't sure about that.
Which section is that?
28, it's just a lease. Section 28. Talking about appraisal procedure and that the landlord and the tenant shall each pay the cost to the appraiser. I just didn't understand why that was in there, being a lease agreement.
So they could devise the amount of the lease, I guess.
Is that appraisal of the improvements?
This has to do with if the land were taken by eminent domain. That's the reference that goes back to that.
Okay.
So under section 15, what is it here? 15EI, you'll see a reference at the bottom of that.
So that's what it is, right?
It refers to section 28. So it's just saying that if, in the event that it's taken, then it goes back to the appraisal.
Okay. There was a note on section 23, I don't know if it was from yours, Laura, but it was saying that this section needs discussion on landlord warranties and indemnity. I'm not quite sure whose note that was.
I believe those notes are from Paul Wilbur's office.
Yeah, that would have been Roscoe.
Roscoe.
I think there was some concern that some of the warranties, because there's a host there, like we can confirm that no mortgages encumber the premises, but I think there was an environmental one.
All right. Well, we lightened up on the language at the beginning by saying to the actual knowledge of the county executive, which I think kind of got Roscoe a little more comfortable around the warranties that he wasn't sure that he could rep to that, so that was in this version. I don't know if those comments were a prior version or not, but.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
No, it sounds, okay.
Are you looking for, what are you looking for from us? You looking for a consensus or?
Well, I think what we were looking for, and of course there's still some things such with the finalizing, because this lease did not include Exhibit A, which would be the actual site we need to, and we're hoping to.
The site layout?
Yeah, the site layout. We're hoping to have a better idea of what that is Thursday or Friday. And then, yeah, next steps. I know a public hearing needs to happen. I think there was interest of doing it as soon as possible. I know the thought or the request originally to Matt Kramer was to do it 3 weeks from now, a special meeting. That would then say if there's any issues that pop up, we have the 2 meetings in December to make those changes. But I'm not sure what the next steps would be.
What's the council's take on that, a special meeting on the 29th
Fine with me.
for a public hearing?
Yeah, when?
The 29th of November for a public hearing.
Have a special meeting?
We would have to hold a special meeting, that's not a regular
What
meeting day.
What day are we having? Don't we have another special meeting scheduled, for the 21st or something? What's that?
You do, it's the fire service agreement work session.
Yeah, isn't that the 21st?
It is.
It is.
But
Can we do it that day?
Don't we have to have 3 weeks? Is that the issue?
To advertise the lease agreement, yes, for the public hearing would be 3 weeks worth of advertising.
So we missed the 21st, so.
By a day?
Yeah, no, yes, by a day. So that would be Tuesday, the 29th. I'm assuming we'd make it 10 o'clock. Would that work for everyone here?
Tuesday, the 29th.
10 o'clock. Let's start at the end. Larry, is that okay with you? Ernie?
Yes.
Joe?
I suppose I'd have to, I think so, yeah, I'll make it work.
Okay. Matt Holloway?
Thank you.
Mark?
I guess. I'm good.
John? Okay, we're good. We'll put that together. for
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Yep, thank you. Have a good evening.
Making your money tonight, Wes. Thanks, guys. Everybody have a good night.
Funky, why don't you, if you
Hope we
could
won't
come
need
to the
luck.
podium and just tell us very briefly, give us an idea of your new appointment and who your guest is? Sorry to take so long and hold you up all night.
So today was my first day working as the Eastern Shore Intergovernmental Affairs Representative in Governor Hogan's office. So I'll be working with all the municipalities on the Eastern Shore and all the county officials on the Eastern Shore. So, Governor Hogan hasn't appointed this position before under Governor O'Malley. Chuck Cook had the position, so I'm not sure. I would suppose he worked with you previously under the last administration, so it's that position. My office is in the District Court Building on floor 2 in the Department of Assessments, oddly. So, but who I brought, Delegate Anderton's here, and Brittany is replacing me in his staff, so.
Very good.
She interned for us very capably last session, and, so she'll be great. So.
Great.
Well, congratulations.
And now she knows all about anaerobic digesters and things like that, so that's good.
I was wondering where the discharge permit was, but that's, I used to be a wastewater operator, so I'm sitting here thinking.
That's why we need a work session.
Well, congratulations on it. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, definitely, thank you.
Very good, very good.
Well, I was gonna say that I don't know what Delegate Anderton would do without him, but I think he looks like he's in good hands now, so. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Any other comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn so we can go into closed session.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks for staying. Now get out.
Good seeing you.
That was your 30 seconds.